Legislative and External Affairs Advisory Committee. We're delighted to have a second one, and we're here. I do want to note that under the Bagley-Keene Open Meetings Act, any commissioners who are participating remotely must keep their camera on at all times and will be asked during roll call if they have any other adults over the age 18 in the room with them and the nature of that relationship with these individuals. Krisangi, can you please take roll?
Commissioner Fairweather?
Present, and there's no one with me.
Commissioner Hill?
Present.
Commissioner Larson?
Present.
Commissioner Mitchell? Commissioner Southard?
And I'm alone.
Commissioner Thomas Beckett? Marking absent. Committee Vice Chair Callan?
Present.
And Committee Chair Bontrager.
Here.
We have 7 in total. Quorum is established.
Excellent, thank you. All right, agenda item 2, announcements. Before we begin, I want to remind everyone that we will be abiding by the Bagley-Keene laws for these meetings. But as a part of our commitment to deeper public involvement and open governance, all advisory committee meetings feature an enhanced public comment segment designed to promote genuine dialogue between the committee and the community. Last month, the governor appointed a Commissioner Tamburo Hill of Modesto to fill a seat of a family member of an adult or older adult peer with a substance use disorder. We are lucky enough to have Commissioner Hill join the Legislative and External Affairs Committee. Commissioner Hill has been a Director of Compliance and Operations at Strive University since 2024. He was Cal AIM Business Services Director at St. Mary's Community Services in 2023 and 24. He has held several roles at Valley Mountain Regional Center from 2007 to 2020, including Program Evaluator for Home and Community-Based Services, Senior Community Services Liaison, and Community Services Liaison. He was also a special day class teacher at Stockton Unified School District and a special day class teaching assistant at the California Youth Authority from 1994 to 2002. He earned a bachelor's degree in business administration from Cal State Stanislaus. I invite Commissioner Hill to say a few words.
I wasn't really prepared to speak, but I'm glad to be here. I'm hoping that I want to be an asset. I'm here to listen, learn, and help move things along. So I just thank you for the welcome, and I look forward to working with you all.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Hill. Commissioner Callan, do you want to take the rest of the announcements?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Item number 3, in case you missed it, the Commission's Budget and Financial Advisory Committee met earlier today, and the Program Advisory Committee will meet later today from 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. The Commission's goal is to have all 3 advisory committees meet on the same day, staggered throughout the day on the 3rd Thursday of the month, in between full Commission meetings. Now, we hope this consistent schedule makes it easier for the public to remember, participate, and to meaningfully contribute to our work. Now, in line with our transparency efforts, we will begin providing brief updates on recent contract amendments during all committee announcements for information purposes only. Please note that contract amendments are negotiated between the Commission and the contractor and must be mutually agreed upon. This month, we have one amendment to report, an update to the Commission's Program 11 contract for creative services. This amendment increases the existing agreement allocation by up to $95,000, bringing the total from $440,726 to $539,726. As of now, $137,963 of the current agreement remains unexpended. Now, the additional funds will support the design and publication of a BHSA stakeholders toolkit. The funds for this amendment are drawn from the Commission's annual $100,000 allocation for BHSA implementation, provided over 3 fiscal years, beginning in FY 2024-25. These funds must be specifically for BHSA implementation. Otherwise, they will be forfeited. This amendment is being executed under the delegated authority of the Executive Director. The LEX Committee will be discussing the advocacy contracts and the toolkit in more detail during our meeting this afternoon. Now, announcement number 5, the Commission has approved a temporary merger of the Client and Family Leadership Committee, CFLC, and the Cultural and Linguistic Competence Committee, CLCC, into a new advisory body. The Client, Family, and Community Inclusion, Lived Experience, and Diversity Advisory Committee, CFC, chaired by Commissioner Chambers. This temporary merger will enable members to collaborate on the development of the Innovation Partnership Fund, which is operating under a tight timeline. In addition to that work, the CFC will also address other relevant issues, some of which may align with the priorities of our committee. I look forward to their insights, and the partnership in ensuing our work remains grounded in equity, elevates culturally responsive practices, and centers the voices of clients and families. The CFC will meet regularly on the 4th Thursday of months when there are no full commission meetings. This first meeting of the CFC is scheduled for September 25 from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Announcement number 6. I would also like to highlight an important conversation that took place during the Commission's August 28th meeting regarding the integration of substance use disorder, SUD, into the Commission's broader work. This discussion, led by Commissioner Tsai and Commissioner Fernandez, followed the passage of Proposition 1 and emphasized the need to consider SUD more intentionally in our planning and our decision-making. As we move forward with today's discussion and in our future work, I encourage our committee members, staff, and the public to reflect on the critical questions that are raised. How can we be intentional about integrating SUD into our work? And how can we ensure that stakeholder engagement efforts meaningfully include voices and perspectives from the SUD community? This reflection will be especially important as we examine our advocacy contracts, which historically have not focused on SUD. It is an opportunity for us to think more expansively and inclusively about how we define advocacy and who we're reaching through all of these efforts. Now, our next full commission meeting is October 23rd in Sacramento. For more information on any of these items, please visit our website and sign up for our email distribution list. Lastly, I would be remiss if I did not announce that the 2025 legislative session concluded on Saturday, September 13. Since the legislature went an extra day until Saturday, the governor now has until October 13th to sign or veto bills, including 3 that the commission supported: AB 348 by Assemblymember Krell, AB 1037 by Assemblymember El Harari, and an omnibus bill, SB 862. The legislature is now on recess and will reconvene on January 5, 2026. That concludes our announcements this morning. I want to again welcome everyone to today's meeting.
Thank you, Commissioner Callan. Yeah, I have several questions, including the BHSA toolkit, but I will wait till that time in the meeting to ask my questions. We'll move on to agenda item number 3, and that's the approval of the June 19th, 2025 LEX Advisory Committee meeting minutes. Those minutes are in your packet, and at this time I'll invite any of our commissioners if they have questions or comments regarding the minutes to go forward. Commissioner Larson?
I was going to move to approve the minutes.
I believe we have public comment first, right? Or is that correct, Chrisana? Yes. Okay. Are there any other comments from the commissioners before we? Okay, Mariani, can you open it up?
We do not have any public comment for the minutes.
Commissioner Larson, you're back.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes. Again.
I have a second.
Second.
proposed motion that the Legislative and External Affairs Advisory Committee approve the June 19th, 2025 LEX Committee meeting minutes. I will now call roll. Commissioner Fairweather,
Aye.
Commissioner Hill,
Aye.
Commissioner Larson,
Aye.
Commissioner Mitchell, Commissioner Southard, Commissioner Thomas Beckett, marking absent, Committee Vice Chair Callen,
Aye.
Committee Chair Bontrager.
Aye.
The motion passes.
Very good. Agenda item 4, general public comment. This time is reserved for comments from the public that are not specific to any particular agenda item. Mariana, can you lead us in the public comment?
Yes, thank you, Chair. If you'd like live meeting transcription or closed captioning, please activate the closed captioning feature located in the control bar at the top or bottom of your screen. If there are any members of the public using translation technology, please notify the chair so that we can be mindful. You may request to make public comment by submitting a card, clicking the raise hand icon on your computer or the app, or if calling in by phone, push *9. Members of the public can also email us public comment to be shared at a future meeting at publiccomment@bhsoac.ca.gov. We do not have any general public comment.
Okay. We're moving quite quickly through the agenda.
Oh,
Wow. Agenda item 5 is 2026 legislation. As many of you know, the commission is committed to transparency in its work. In line with this commitment, we recently issued a request for 2026 bill proposals, seeking input on issues the community is facing and ideas for potential solutions. At this time, I'd like to invite Deputy Director Kendra Zoller to present the proposals we've received and provide an update on the next steps in the process. Go forward, Kendra.
Thank you. Good afternoon. As the chair just mentioned, I'm Kendra Zoller, Deputy Director of Legislation and External Affairs. Today I'll be facilitating the first of what we expect to be many conversations around potential bill proposals for sponsorship in 2026. In August, the Commission issued a 10-day call for bill proposals. Stakeholders were asked to complete a form modeled on our committee's decision-making framework. Before we dive into the proposals, I'd like to provide some context. It's relatively uncommon for state departments to solicit proposals from external partners, but as the chair noted, we did so in an effort to uphold our values of transparency and open dialogue. We received 22 proposals, many of which fall under common themes: crisis response, workforce, youth, veterans, equity. These issues reflect both statewide and national priorities right now. However, I won't be going into detail about each of these today. As you know, we're still very early in the 2026 vetting process, and our last legislative session just ended. It's also important to remember that some stakeholders may pursue these ideas through other channels. Reviewing them in detail here could unintentionally impact those efforts. As you know, the legislative process is as much about strategy, timing, and coalition building as it is about the content of the proposal. Every issue needs to be evaluated with a fresh lens. Here's a reminder of our decision-making tool that we presented in our first LEX committee. All our committees are using something very similar. It helps us determine where the commission is best positioned to focus its efforts and where there's the strongest alignment with our mission. Beyond alignment with the commission's goals, we must also consider the broader political and budget environment. Many successful bills take years to get across the finish line. It's often about timing. While we don't know yet next year's exact budget, we do know the state is operating under a deficit, and we expect fiscal impact to be a major consideration in 2026. Proposals that require new funding or resources may face significant challenges. This challenge is compounded by recent federal budget cuts, which have increased competition for already limited state funds. On top of that, there's political uncertainty. at the federal level. California will also hold a special election this November to suspend the current congressional maps drawn by an independent commission and adopt new ones designed to favor Democrats in a move to a direct response to a similar redistricting efforts in Texas and other states favoring Republicans. The takeaway here is we're clearly operating in a highly political climate, which comes into play when thinking about these things. Meanwhile, in our field, BHSA implementation begins next year, so that's a major shift. And typically when the state is rolling out something of that magnitude, you might see a temporary slowdown in new legislation related to the same issue, as change layered on change is not the most effective, but never say never. And finally, the next governor election is just about a year away. That could bring significant changes in leadership, priorities, administration-wide direction. All of this highlights the need for both short-term and long-term strategic thinking when deciding when and how to move forward. Okay, the proposals. Please refer to your packet for short summaries of all the 22 proposals. As I mentioned, I'll keep today's remarks pretty brief in order to respect the interests of those who submitted the ideas. I do want to acknowledge that my staff has already reached out to many submitters, and we intend to connect with all of them. So thinking about this exploring other pathways, I think you all remember, or at least I do, the Schoolhouse Rocks, I'm Just a Bill. It starts with an idea and it wants to be a law, but legislation is not always the most effective or appropriate path forward. It's just one tool in the toolbox. So this slide outlines how proposals have been initially categorized. Administrative means legislation is likely not required to make this happen. Non-commission sponsored means it's already a current 2-year bill. It will begin again next year. Grant-oriented means more appropriate for a funding opportunity. And other means generally outside of the commission's scope, but we're happy to connect submitters with the right resources. Several proposals seem to align with our decision-making framework, but require additional vetting. They're listed here. Staff will continue working with commissioners and stakeholders to evaluate them more thoroughly. And finally, here are a few proposals that show high alignment with both the Commission's priorities and BHSA, or the BHT transformation. I'll briefly highlight the key issues that these raise. One, align advocacy contracts with BHSA priority populations. BHSA created priority populations for the most vulnerable, homeless, involved with the justice system, child welfare system, institutionalization, reentering the community, and conservatorship. This proposal points out that the Commission's advocacy contracts do not reflect those populations, and they should perhaps be better aligned. 2, free statewide online suicide prevention training and data collection. The state invested in free online suicide prevention training for students and teachers, but the pilot is ending despite the requirement that schools include training in their suicide prevention policies. The policy also requires schools to do suicide risk screenings, but nobody's collecting the data. This proposal points out these two issues and attempts to solve them, and aligns with the Commission's policy project on the same topic. 3, ensure psychiatric care for the justice involved in rural areas. This proposal points out the issue of rural psychiatric health facilities not accepting those who are incarcerated, which clearly aligns with the BHSA priority populations. Expanding the fee schedule to youth not in school. The 4th bullet highlights that the need for youth not in school to still be able to access the behavioral health services the CYBHI fee schedule reimburses if these services are provided off-site, such as a youth drop-in center. This is really in consideration of our most vulnerable youth. And lastly, make peer support services a Medi-Cal benefit for non-specialty mental health. This commission has heard many times about the need to increase the behavioral health workforce, particularly with peers in the non-specialty mental health space, and this proposal builds on that urgency. All right, we're not requesting any votes today. We're still in the middle of vetting proposals and shaping them into fully formed options. While we haven't spoken with everyone, this doesn't mean we're not working on it, and we'll circle back with all contributors, as I mentioned. We plan to bring refined proposals for a decision most likely at the January meeting, commission meeting. So we'll talk about this again in the November LEX committee, and that'll help us further the discussion. As of now, we anticipate staff capacity to sponsor 1 or 2 bills. Once we receive commission approval, we'll move into full legislative planning and coordination. This slide outlines the general process and timeline. Generally, once you develop your proposal, you create a fact sheet, draft statutory language, go find a champion to author it in the legislature, and you start to build your coalition. We're excited to bring everyone along the way, and hopefully with your input, some of these ideas won't be sitting there on Capitol Hill too long. Happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Commissioner?
Yes.
Thank you for this really clean presentation of the process and how it works to get the bill started. And so will we get an opportunity to meet any of these
Submitters?
Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. We can coordinate that.
So
The
they-
staff already have been, and we've brought in some commissioners based on the subject, but I'm happy to connect with you and anyone really.
Yeah, I
like
think
to
that
be a
would
part
be
of it.
very, very helpful to bring them in so that, because one of the things that I've talked about again is always, because I'm not always in the weeds, God knows this is, when we can put in the effort and the time, but I'm always disturbed at how does this benefit the consumer? Because we still see so much, harm, disparity, hopelessness. So this is good, especially being on this committee, because it's right at the forefront. And so I would really like to see those presenters that are presenting with bills that if they make it through the process, if they make it through our Capitol, there is a clear outcome for the public, a clear outcome where it can be measured, where we can see whether a number is going up or down for the benefit of that beneficiary. That is what I will be looking for. Is this proposal, whether it's in the schools or if it's for the homeless or if it's for SUD, is this bill going to hit someone's life and not get stuck in some administrative, something that is not measurable? Because it's almost like we're just not really seeing it work on the street level.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what I'm going to seriously be looking for.
Thank you. I think, yeah, absolutely. And that's a lot of what the Capitals Committee consultants are asking, the same questions. So you have to be prepared for that in order to be successful. So agreed.
I would like to follow up with Commissioner Mitchell's comment, and that is, whatever we end up sponsoring, that we do have some presentation around the anticipated benefit to the intended beneficiary as part of that proposal. Just, I think we fall to our default to really more is always better, but what is actually the anticipated benefit to those intended beneficiaries? What can it look like? I appreciate your comment.
We'd be happy to do that in November.
I believe we have commissioners remotely. I can't see.
Yes. So a couple of comments. One, I think I saw the form, the submission form, but it didn't really ask that the legislative proposal be really fleshed out. And obviously the descriptions that you have are very short, as they should be for these purposes. Um, the bills that are ultimately decided that we would sponsor, that's not just supporting, it's significant work on the part of the staff. So I understand that it's very limited. Um, does that preclude, or is there another process by which the commission simply supports other existing legislation but is not engaging in the sponsorship and the real, legwork and staff work and hours that are involved in that?
Yeah, absolutely. The session just ended, but this committee will be deciding support or oppose positions on any legislation beginning probably January.
So for the people who have submitted ideas and because of capacity or other reasons, um, their idea is not ultimately adopted for sponsorship, all is not lost in terms of if they want to approach the commission and ask for support.
Yep, absolutely.
Great. That's all. Thanks.
So I just want to follow up with Commissioner Fairweather's comments. Is there something in our calculus that we can evaluate, though we're in total favor of a particular bill, that there's a better entity to move it forward than the commission, though we don't have to sponsor it, but we can endorse it? Is that part of our overall calculus as well?
It is, yeah. And so some of the reach outs we've already done have, suggested to them, it's really more you should be talking to HCI on this. And we've actually made the connections and tried to ask questions of the other departments to give them information and give something to help them develop what they're thinking about. If it's like not quite our space, we've been trying to help facilitate that.
Other commissioner comments or questions?
There's also a comment from Commissioner Southern online.
Thank you.
Just wanted to highlight the need for whatever we do in terms of legislation to focus on workforce development issues, because in several counties that I'm close to knowing what's going on, the workforce shortage affects everything. And so new programs starting out with no workforce to do it will not be a good use of energy.
Appreciate that. Is the hand up remotely?
That's a public comment.
Okay. Any other commissioner comments or questions? Okay. Mariana, do you want to open it up for public comment?
Okay, we currently have a public comment from Kimberly online. You can go ahead.
Hi. So, I'm not sure how long I have. This is my first time coming to one of these meetings. But I'm Kimberly. I'm with the Yolo County Local Behavioral Health Board, and I worked as a first responder. I worked as a wildland firefighter and as an EMT, but I come here today speaking as an individual and speaking as a consumer of mental health services. And I was the one that submitted one of the bill proposals regarding CIT training for first responders. So CIT stands for Crisis Intervention Team Training, and that has been widely utilized with training law enforcement. But kind of what I'm proposing is to find a way to expand this type of training to other types of first responders, such as emergency medical providers and also firefighters. Because in my experiences in working in the EMS system and in my experiences as a consumer, I saw that there is a honestly quite shocking lack of understanding towards mental health and a quite shocking lack of training. In EMT school, I had 1 hour lecture regarding mental health, and that was it. And these are the people responding to people in like the worst type of crises. So yeah, anyway, that was my bill proposal, and I just wanted to speak directly on it to this commission.
Thank you, Kimberly, and thank you for your service. I might ask, obviously in your line of work, you encounter folks in traumatic situations. Is the CIT training the preferred training for first responders in those situations? Are we able to, or Mariana, are we able to have dialogue?
Yeah, let me unmute her 1 second. Kimberly, could you raise your hand again? Okay, thank you. Okay, go ahead.
So from what I understand, in the past, CIT training has been more geared towards law enforcement, but this type of training has been around since the 1980s. It was first implemented in Memphis, but there's a lot of police departments and sheriff's departments throughout California that are utilizing this training. So I know for a fact there's some sheriff departments that are putting all of their new deputies through this training. I actually had the opportunity to sit in on 40 hours, like the 40-hour version of CIT at a sheriff's department in Southern California, and I thought it was very beneficial. There's presentations from mental health providers, there's presentations from consumers. They talk about a very wide range of conditions such as like psychosis spectrum, autism, children's mental health. So I just, from my own experiences, I thought it was very relevant and it should be expanded to other types of first responders, because comparing the CIT training with the training I received in mental health school, or I'm in EMT school, the quality and type of information was very drastically different.
Thank you. Commissioner Fairweather, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, Kimberly. My agency actually provides a segment of CIT training to our local law enforcement in the Bay Area counties. And there are some of the agencies that do have some firefighters, the people who answer the 911 calls, and for some reason I'm not thinking of the right term for them, and those other groups. And it's like that moment of crisis. It sort of reminds me of our support of the psychiatric advance directives. And like that's the point in time when, it's critical to address it as a mental health concern, and avoid really unfortunate outcomes. So I think it's a great idea. Not that that necessarily means that the commission can work on it, but yeah, I appreciate what you're saying.
Thank you, Commissioner. Other commissioner comments on that? Okay. Any other public comments, Mariana?
Yes, we have another public comment from Stacy.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Stacy Hiramoto with REMCO, the Racial and Ethnic Mental Health Disparities Coalition, also representing some of the partners of the CRDP, the California Reducing Disparities Project. I just want to, once again, I hope you don't get tired of hearing this, compliment the staff and you commissioners for starting these new processes. Just as Kendra said, I don't know really a very few other state organizations, agencies, or bodies that have such an open invitation to the public to give suggestions. And I know, obviously, you can't, take them all on, but I just want to tell you how important that is, how meaningful that is, and thank you again. And also welcome the new commissioner. My first job out of college, one of the first ones, was working at a regional center. So we can talk later. But I also, of course, I know this looks self-serving, but just because I have a few minutes and you are the most important body when it comes to the legislative area, talk about the CRDP, the California Reducing Disparities Project, especially for the new commissioners that don't know. This project is a very large project that has been going since, about 2010. It is probably nationally the most significant mental health project in reducing disparities for the African American community, the API community, the Latinx community, the Native American community, and the LGBTQ community. So all of these underserved communities have special projects within the CRDP. But one thing I don't want you to forget is that the commission is the original funder and creator of this project. And so we would have never even gotten off the ground back in 2010 without your support. And I think that's something that's not known. And I think, even though most of you weren't around, I think you should take credit for that, because this is, again, one of the most fantastic projects. And it would be great if we could expand that to behavioral health as well as just mental health, or, do whatever, expand it. So again, I'm not, with the proposal, we weren't asking just to keep funding the same old projects, even though they are fantastic. We're open to trying to keep this project alive in other ways. But again, thank you. Thank you. You have a wonderful staff. And again, this is a new day for the commission. And thank you. Good luck. We're here to work with you.
Stacy, quick question for you, if you don't mind. Sure. Is the request to identify ongoing sustainable funding, or what?
Yes, help us, because sadly, the project, which again has been going since 2010, will come to an end June 30th of next year. And yes, the Department of Public Health has been administering this, but they have not been clear with us whether or not they're going to be, helping us sustain any kind of version of this. They sort of say they want to, but when I asked them, did you put in a BCP? It was kind of like, So they're very, again, I have so much faith in this new commission. I recommend it to the body that we ask this body to take it over. So yes, we're asking, in whatever form, because otherwise it could come to an end, and that would be really tragic.
Thank you. Commissioner Mitchell?
And someone can tell me if I'm out of order or off task with this comment. But I think, Stacy, when I came on, you guys were in your 6th year. That would have been 2016.
Maybe, yeah.
And I think the funding had
That was
either-
phase 2.
Yeah, okay.
We were just beginning.
And you are correct. The commission, from my understanding, did first fund CRDP. I think it would be helpful, perhaps, if the body allows it, the full commission, is to somehow get on the agenda to bring to everyone and the new commissioners some of your activities,
Oh, yes.
your outcomes, what have you done for communities?
Yes. Thank you,
Because
Commissioner Mitchell.
again,
Yes.
some of us are visual learners.
Yes.
And it's very helpful to get the data. Show me the money, show me, and I think that will be helpful if you guys could get on, because from my understanding, CRDP is a big thing. You're here every month. So many people have come from your organization. But show us what CRDP, help us to understand the investment.
It's a huge project. There are over 40 individual contractors in this project. And I almost don't want to speak on it. I don't blame you if you guys are sick of hearing me. I come up all the time, right? Well, you want to see the people that are actually doing the work. You want to hear from the people that have received the services, right? And also, there was a presentation, although I feel like there were not very many commissioners there, and the new commissioners were definitely not there. But there was a presentation that I think was really tremendous by the evaluator that gave a short presentation that talked about, I'll give you the 2 bottom lines. Number 1, for every state taxpayer dollar invested in this project, you will save 5 down the road. That's big. The other thing is that these community-defined evidence practices work. They have had, Loyola Marymount University did rigorous evaluation on all of the projects and found that the mental health status of participants either remained the same or improved. And this, and you know, I don't want to take all the time, but this is even for people who have serious mental health issues. And in fact, the ones that had the more serious mental health issues improved to a greater degree than the ones that, again, they take everyone. They don't say, well, you know, they don't recruit by saying, hey, are you depressed? Come to this. That's not how they recruit, okay? These are cultural-based practices that, you know, try to mix everyone, people who are currently healthy, people who are stressed, and people who have mental health conditions. They are all together, and they find that people like that. Sometimes people, yes, need to be separate, but a lot of times, I mean, people with mental health issues want to work together with everyone, not just other people who are, you know, having extreme difficulties. So I want you to see these projects and hear from people, not from me, because I'm not a direct practitioner anymore. So but every time, we do have a website, so you can start looking at the programs there. But thank you, Commissioner Mitchell.
Hi, Stacy. I have one quick question. It sounds amazing. Where does substance use disorders fall into the category of the CRDP?
Well,
I'm just thinking about the
we
alignment with our
we
commission.
would love to, you know, expand the programs to include, and maybe they have people, I'm sure, because you see, they do not ask, well, maybe a few of them do, but most of the programs do not require a diagnosis, or they do not require you to say, you know, I'm really struggling. That, again, that's not how they recruit folks. I mean, they may ask, you know, do you want to be healthy or do you want to feel better? I mean, those are more the types of things. And when the program started, it was the MHSA. So while behavioral health may have been, or substance use disorders or addictions may have been allowed, I have to say it really wasn't encouraged. And but again, these programs are not, they don't limit it. So I am sure, I bet there will be people that say, oh yeah, we have people with addiction or substance use issues in our programs. Yeah. But again, if you want to make it more specific or explicit, that would be, I think, welcome by the group.
Might be a great opportunity.
Yes, 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 yes. Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Our next comment is from California Black Women's Health. Your line is open.
Yes, hi there. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, terrific. My apologies for not being able to join on camera. My name is Sonia Young Adam, and I'm the CEO of the California Black Women's Health Project. And I'm actually really pleased that a couple of you went and asked Stacy Hiramoto some additional questions, because some of those things are things that I wanted to articulate, in particular about the California Reducing Disparities Project. At California Black Women's Health Project, we are a part of the CRDP, and we have operated a program called Sisters Mentally Mobilized, a statewide project. And, you know, there's bounds and bounds of evidence around the success of the program that we operate, as well as others that we work closely with in the African American hub of the CRDP. And I wanted to really say initially to thank Commissioner Mitchell for early in this conversation speaking so specifically about evidence and what is happening to people on the ground, the experiences, the impact that programs like this, as well as I'm assuming, you know, I mean, she was really talking about you know, the proposals that have been submitted and whether or not there will be an opportunity to see where there is evidence. Stacy mentioned the CRDP. There's clear evidence of the statewide projects that have done this work, and there would be a really, really full show of support if there were ever an opportunity for us to submit to the commission. I also really wanted to say, I mean, I didn't know if CRDP would come up later, but in terms of the proposals that have been submitted, um, and I don't see them, but, just the list and the categories. And then I appreciated, the one, woman who came on to talk about the one that she submitted around CIT. Um, the CRDP, um, and its focus on, reducing disparities has borne really in my mind, an overwhelming burden of holding up, mental health care in California for, Black LGBTQ, API, and all of the other um, groups that are included in that project. And I wanted to just ask, when you have a category that is equity, it makes me in my mind think, oh, this is really the only place where we can really fit in, to what these proposals would do. It feels a little bit overwhelming that, it's like the equity has to fall in a category by itself. Whereas when you look at workforce, I mean, there are part of the challenges that we have, and one of the reasons why our community defined evidence practice is so important to our community is because we're standing in the gap because there isn't sufficient workforce, particularly to support our community, available in all of the cities where we, operate this project. We also, through the CRDP, how incredible it is clearly evident. We have not had an opportunity to scale this project in the 10 years because the funding is, sort of limited and we can't scale it. So it's like the potential to grow these projects is what I would hope that maybe the commission would consider. But in crisis response, in youth work, I mean, there are, disparities, issues across all of these areas where the proposals are being submitted. And I would like to just hope that the commission will evaluate the proposals from a lens of equity and from a lens of, looking at whether, marginalized populations can be served through the projects that are submitted. I mean, it'd be nice not to have to just, find your place in an equity category in order to be able to apply for opportunities or be considered for contracts or, look at ways to support our communities across these areas that were presented. So thanks for hearing me. Thank you. We have presented before the commission in the past, I will tell you, and before Ms. Mitch, the California Black Women's Health Project and our specific project. And we would be, welcome an opportunity to share more and to hope that the commission will support us in finding ways to sustain this work and to present opportunities where we can potentially scale it. And we have begun to introduce substance use disorder into the work we're doing because we had to. Although we can't count on the funding, we just had to find another way to do it. But the community defined practices address, a broad area of issues. People don't walk in and just say one thing, like Stacy said. They come in and they lay it all out, and whatever it is they present with, we stand in that gap and we find ways to provide it to them or support them in advocating their way through the existing systems. And, soft handholds, rough tactics sometimes to open doors, to get people into where they need to be, continuous follow-up to support them through their journey to better mental behavioral wellness, and such. So thank you so much for hearing me. I appreciate you all.
Thank you very much.
And that was our last public comment.
Chair Bontrager? I just wanted to comment a little bit in response to what was just said. And it kind of came up for me when I was looking at the slides, because we do call out equity as a separate item, like as something we're considering. And it's not to minimize it or put it in a corner. I think it's so everybody knows that we haven't forgotten about it. I will say it's absolutely woven into all of the other criteria we're talking about. Like when you think about the Behavioral Health Services Act priority populations, those populations are all disproportionately impacted. The persons of color are all disproportionately represented within each of those priority populations. And so I think as we're moving forward and thinking about, the California Reducing Disparities Project or equity in general, it's like how that shows up within those priority populations and how we can reduce that, I guess, is the frame I would say. So equity isn't like an afterthought or the last thing we're thinking of. It's woven into even the very populations that we're prioritizing.
I can add to that too. Agreed. And just so no one is confused about it, you didn't have to submit proposals in these categories. This is just me trying to sort them in a presentable way. It was hard because they're all spread out across all kinds of things. I was just trying to make it make sense for my presentation. So it doesn't mean they are stuck there or anything like that.
Thank you. All right. Thank you, Kendra. We're moving forward. Agenda item 6. We will hear a presentation on the request for proposal outline for the upcoming Transitional Age Youth Advocacy Contract. Assistant Deputy Director Rain Kopchak to present.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks for having us here today. I just want to say we're really excited. The team is really excited to present this to you, and it's kind of our first opportunity to incorporate some creative approaches into our advocacy work here. And really proud of the team that worked on it. So I just wanted to say thank you to Sarah Weber, Lester Abancho, and Kendall Vargas for their real hard work, as well as the support of several commissioners, including Commissioners Callan, Thomas Beckett, and Commissioner Wilkes, for attending our community engagement events and helping us with this concept. So if you love the idea, it's completely everyone else's work. And if you hate it, I take the failure, because then I'm not presenting their brilliance well enough, right? Okay, so transition age youth. I don't know. Oh, wrong way. It's the big button. Okay, so first, and you're going to hear more about this later. These advocacy goals are something that the team is trying to work into all of our advocacy proposals. We created goals for advocacy overall for the commission. I'm going to present on that actually after this and talk a little bit about how we came up with these. But the overarching goal across our advocacy programs are to ensure Behavioral Health Services Act priority populations have authentic community-led representation that shapes behavioral health systems through sustainable leadership and ownership, right? And that is in addition to the populations that we have defined within our 9 categories. So we're really trying to uniformly apply that across all of our advocacy contracts and proposals. Our specific advocacy goal is to support the population to identify their priorities, build strategies, and engage directly with decision makers. As far as training and education, we'd like to build knowledge of behavioral health systems, foster confidence networks, and abilities to organize, educate peers, and participate in local and state decision making. Finally, for outreach and engagement, we want to engage and build trust with the widest population reach of vulnerable individuals, expand participation, foster connection, and reach new voices. The reason those 3 categories are kind of outlined here is that's really the only mandate of our advocacy programs, is that we address training and education, outreach and engagement, and advocacy in our proposals. So before we start talking about the proposal, a lot of folks aren't familiar with the definition of transition age youth. The commission has chosen to identify that as youth ages 16 to 25. Different populations will go 16 to 24 or 13 to 24. For us, we're talking about 16 to 25. So you're looking like folks getting ready to drive, sophomores in high school, all the way up to, you know, folks entering the workforce, going to college, graduating. That's kind of the difficult age that we're focusing on here. Lots of different issues for folks in this population, right? Lots of different opportunities for us to reach out and help. So I just want to kind of give a history of TAE advocacy that's here at the commission and how we've handled our contracts. The commission received funding for advocacy to support this specific population in 2015 for the first time. We have 3-year contracts for $670,000 per year, which totals $2,010,000 over the course of 3 years, and they've been awarded in 2016, 2019, and 2023. Most recent grantee, who's actually here with us today, happy to have you guys, is the California Youth Empowerment Network, a program of Mental Health America. Mental Health America of California. Kyan's work focused on event-based local advocacy in partnership with regional partners in 3 annual statewide TAE-led TAE days at the state capitol. And I know that we've had the opportunity to support and show up at some of those events, and they do a really fantastic job reaching a tremendous wide range of folks in this population. So when we did our community engagement, we asked to hear from Tay specifically. And we went to, we had online listening sessions, and we also went to Sac City College, and we met with a group of folks there. And we asked them, like, what your needs are. How do we reach folks in this population? Tell us what's going on, right? And these are some of the comments that we found were important. We heard that a lot of Tay don't have the ability to see what their life is really supposed to be about, right? They don't even know what their options are, okay? They talked about trying to get involved and trying to advocate, but that a lack of systems knowledge is used against them. They actually said weaponized against them. And so they lack credibility with decision makers when they try to elevate their voice. Others were saying, like, we love to advocate, and when we do that, it actually helps us with our own life improvement. I thought that was really poignant for them to understand that reaching out and helping others actually helps you, right? So that connection. We had folks that tell us that happiness is when their life isn't a dead end, saying that they wanted to have hope, they wanted to have options, right? Talking about everyone needing a healthy habit. And I think Commissioner Callan was there when the young man who was in recently out of foster care made this comment, and he has some real difficulties, and he was living in his vehicle, but every day he got up and he went to work, and he said, I need to have a healthy habit every day to look up and look forward to. And I just thought that was really important. Folks were concerned, the youth were concerned that funding doesn't actually serve people. And we really took that to heart here. We wanted, as Commissioner Mitchell mentioned earlier, we want to see the direct impact on people's lives in different ways, right? They talked about everyone needing to feel welcomed at the table, right? How do we get folks to feel comfortable in situations, political climates where they might not normally feel comfortable? And then they talked about loving social media, but really valuing in-person connection with peers. And then that advocacy is building community and not exclusively forming government policies. I thought that was really important too. So in our community engagement efforts, we reached out to our current grantee. We met with them to talk about the status of their contract, how their work was going, where they saw the gaps. We also met with different organizations such as Pro Youth, and families who works in this space, iFoster, who works in this space. We met with the California Community College Districts, Department of Healthcare Services, and then we met with youth in this age range. Some themes emerged when we were talking to them. Outside of those quotes, we heard about the need to build resiliency, talking about available opportunities, links to resources that felt real to them, that really connected them. Addressing at-risk populations, and then also some sort of connection to career-related resources and learning. So some of them that we spoke to didn't even know, about the California Promise Grant, where you can get a free junior college education in California regardless of income, right? So they didn't even know about these things. They talked about skill building and readiness to elevate their voice, but having a fear that they didn't know the right words to use to maintain credibility, or not being able to present themselves in a way where they were going to be taken, as a 17-year-old being taken seriously by a legislator, right? We also talked about at-risk Tay, specifically relative to the BHSA priority populations, as well as others that they may identify within their networks. And they said that there's a lack of safety net, lack of peer connection, and a lack of relevant resources that are actually getting to those who need them most, right? Maybe when you're in a crisis or you're really suffering, you don't have the wherewithal to get on Google and find something, or you don't have connection to the internet to figure out how to get yourself help. And then the peer connection. This is something that we are hearing over and over across all of our populations, is the credible connections to their peers, right? Someone they can identify with, shared interests that lead to empowerment, So combining their voice and empowering them to speak as one, and then how to advocate versus being an activist. And I thought this was a really important conversation that we had. And they talked about, you know, protests and things really not getting anything done. And so we brought to their attention that, you know, there's activism and then there's advocacy. And there's power in advocacy, there's power in activism, but what are you really trying to get done? And that they could understand the difference between those two things and really like use that to get the most beneficial way to get your voice heard. So our proposed outline is that we do a 3-year, $2,010,000 contract and ask proposers to create TAY-led leadership training. We want them to have a planning phase where they're going to use TAY to develop from our community engagement and from their own expertise these types of curriculum that are going to help them to achieve the goals that were outlined here, right? Teach them how to speak credibly, teach them how to present themselves in a credible manner, what really matters to them. Then, so that would be the planning and development process. And then we're going to ask them to have 3 cohorts of students statewide, or youth, they don't have to be students, of youth statewide, with connections to career pathways as well. So we want part of that curriculum to be, you know, how do we connect with the peer specialist workforce? This goes back to what everyone's been saying today about building the workforce, right? And these are career pathways. You can work within the behavioral health system before you're a licensed clinician. You can get this experience, see if it's your jam, right? So connections to peer specialists, wellness coaches, community health worker pathways, right? We want them to also develop a cultural responsiveness report, and that is something written by TAY that tells everyone else how to connect with them, what their value is, how to engage with them, the language practices, like ways that they like to communicate. Yes, we do like to communicate through text, through email, but we also would enjoy the opportunity to have sit-down conversations face-to-face with folks that can help us change our lives. And then at the end of those cohorts, they're working towards a project, a final project, right? And that final project is going to be elevating an important matter that cohort identifies. And it could be more than one if they have a few that cohort wants to elevate. And they're going to elevate that to decision makers, right? And so it's working towards an end goal where they get some sort of like certificate to graduate. We've even thought about having them come receive their certificates at a commission meeting or from commissioners, right? To recognize their hard work. We also want to have a data collection and evaluation period at the end of that. This is something brand new for an advocacy outline at the commission. We have never evaluated or collected like serious data about this. And we're going to do data from a lot of different perspectives, not just what did you learn, but how did the contractor do, right? Do you feel like there was system impact? How do we move forward and raise that voice further? Do you feel like it was beneficial? Also go to those decision makers that were the recipients of those final projects. How was that taken? Is this different from youth you've heard from before, right? These are some of the things that the team has really tried to kind of drive into this concept, right? Really TAY-led, matters to TAY, and then the connection to actually getting empowerment of their voice and getting something done. We also want to build into this as something very important to this population, and we're calling it recruitment and retention funds. I think it's, you know, a lot of people refer to it as stipends. So part of this contract for these folks that are going to spend the time in this leadership training is going to be compensation for their time, compensation for seeing the program through for their work. The other part of this, which I'm really excited about, is equity access funds, right? So what that is and how it differs from the recruitment and retention concept is that maybe we want to reach youth that are not only wanting to do this work, but also like not the typical youth that you would reach in a leadership academy, right? So what we're talking about is maybe folks who really want to participate in these, whether it's in-person or webinars, they don't have the transportation to even get there, right? Or they need a laptop, or they need wireless internet or internet services. They need clothing for when they go, buy this kid a suit so he can go present to the legislature. So he has that credibility. Those equity access funds are going to be a minimum percentage of the contract that they have to use. And we have developed and are still working on approval processes and things that they can spend them on, how the commission is going to receive receipts for that and make sure that it's really going towards the participants here. And then we want to have them recruit participants from the BHSA priority populations as well as the other subpopulations within TAE. We'd like them to focus their end projects, their final projects, on a matter that is closely related to BHSA, include them in community planning processes and things of that nature. And I just included here the what BHSA identifies as those priority populations. So that's kind of the overview of the TAE outline. The recommendation that the committee here, after comment and input, and please, I welcome the comments and the inputs, because this is really a different approach for the commission. Like all of our contracts previously were very event-based, and we would count the number of events. You have to have 15 events a year, and that's what we were doing. And I really feel like we're trying to move away from that and really get some quality programs and services to these underserved and marginalized communities that really actually have a direct input on their daily lives. So the ask today is that this committee recommends that the commission approve the request for the proposal outline, and Kristangi will read this again when we're actually voting to recommend that we can move this concept forward with your comments to the full commission for a vote so that we can release an RFA. And I think at that point, we're gonna welcome your questions and your comments.
Well, Ryan, thank you for a very, very good presentation. I have some comments, but I'll invite fellow commissioners first. Commissioner Larson.
Thank you so much. This is really a great presentation. I have been in this field a really long time, and one of my favorite jobs of all of the time was when I got to work with transition age youth. I just kind of got too old to do it anymore. So, but it's still, an area where I feel like there's so much potential. You can make such a difference in someone's life in this critical period. On the slide where you talk about like the different trainings, like peer support worker, community health worker, you don't mention like certified alcohol and drug counselor. I think that should be added just, as we move to the SUD frame. I also, you talk about the priority populations and that how a minimum population will have to meet that criteria, but I think I'd love to be like more explicit about that, or like in our, reviewing rubric, have extra credit for people that are really like going into juvenile detention facilities to recruit their youth, or going into STRTPs to recruit child welfare youth, or, really doing the outreach with the priority populations that are youth, homeless youth that are at the Wind Youth Center down the street. I feel like all of these are great, and there are specific ways to outreach to the priority populations that have been identified within the Behavioral Health Services Act, and I would just encourage us to do whatever we can within this to make sure they're prioritized.
Absolutely. I appreciate that, and we'll circle back when we get to that part of the development of the RFA. Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Mitchell.
Oh, thank you. This contract, or contract to be, it's really for the advocacy. And so, Ryan, you said in the past they've been more event related. Like, how many outreach efforts or events has the TAE group, or whoever gets this contract, attend to recruit youth or inform youth, educate, train, blah, blah, blah? Again, I'm always boots on the ground. So do we track and keep a list of actual TAE programs in the state of California that actually exist? Do we know who our TAE programs are?
Well, I think that's a fair question. We know who we've worked with, and the TAY contract requires that they work with other local entities there. So throughout the almost 10 years of the TAY, we kind of have gotten a landscape for who's moving in this space. We do track like what our contractors are attending, and in their quarterly reports, in their annual reports, they will highlight work of others. But then we also see connections through our other contractors as well. So we try to follow all of those things, and we go to, what we can. I'm not sure that it would encompass everything that's happening out there in the state, but the point is taken that maybe there's an opportunity here to also promote the work of others that aren't just grantees.
Okay, I guess, no, I think this is great, don't get me wrong. I just think it would be great if maybe part of this advocacy contract would include them identifying who other TAPE programs are. So it's like when we talk about all working together, they're doing the advocacy work, but they're also advocating for other TAPE programs.
Sure.
Because there's a lot of stuff going on in the community where youth need support, like I think we just did that site visit where I couldn't find any of you guys.
Alcove.
The alcove, could not find, I don't know who gave that address out, but anyways. So that's a great, to me, would that be considered a TAY type program?
Sure.
So it's just great to know that TAY knows their own people, so that us old people can say, okay, well, you can go to that TAY program, and then if you can't find what you need there, maybe they can tell you where to go somewhere else. But we should know who they all are. I don't know if that's doable, because are there programs that provide TAY services, but they aren't identified as TAY programs? I think at a minimum, we should know who our TAY programs are, and this advocacy piece would have a responsibility to at least make sure that someone is tracking who our TAY programs are, so that we know, and then we can help other programs or youth at the appointed time if they need a resource. Even the commission should have a list of who all the TAY programs are. Public wants to go on there and say, hey, I have a need. Okay, wow, this is in my community. I can at least look into this. Something that makes it a little bit more doable, easy, because we always function from such a high level that we aren't reaching down into the trenches with the folks who need the service. So that's what I would like to see, this contract at least have a responsibility for that piece. Okay. If that makes sense. Does it make sense? Okay.
I like it.
I think we walk that line, right? Like, we don't provide direct service right here. And so I think we have to kind of maybe take it back to the team and find out a way that we can make people aware of their resources, like to your point, and get the information out there.
Hi, Ryan. The experience at the listening session was incredible, and we met some incredible people, and I think there are many great things, but one of the common things I think we talked about was the continuity of services for some of them. They would go through a program, and then they'd out-age it at, say, at 21, and then, then they're sleeping in their car and going to college, and it's only a few special people who will do that. And then another woman that we talked to, she was doing everything right, but then then the housing she got was not occupied with people who are on the same path as them.
Right.
And it wasn't probably the best place for her. So it's just sort of like what Commissioner Mitchell was saying, just the continuity and the awareness. And then if they don't use some of these, if they decide not to use one of these programs, why not? And so that's what I saw. I saw a lot of great things, but it's just putting them together and letting the continuity go all the way through the aging system, and even opportunities after they've transitioned out of that age group.
Yeah, agreed. Thank you.
I have one comment. As far as the evaluation, could we add, and maybe we already do this, but I'd really want to know if the participants feel more connected to their community after participating. And not to go off on a rant, but I feel like these are opportunities, whether it's advocacy grants or even CDEP, where can we build community with it? Not everybody needs a clinician, but we sure as heck all need a connection.
Agreed.
And especially now when we're engaged in political tribalism, we need to literally be connected to each other. And if some of this, the impact is that Tay youth become connected to their community, sign me up.
Right.
We need that desperately. So I would unabashedly want that to be something we evaluate and we hold as a virtue of this program. So,
Yeah, absolutely.
all right, Mariani, do you want to open up for public comment?
Yes, we have one comment.
We have Fairweather.
Oh, so sorry.
Commissioner Fairweather?
Just tagging on to that point about the connection to community and sort of like how would that be done? Would there be some sort of, evaluation system where there's interviews with people or a sort of pre-post engagement survey? I'm sort of wondering how that could be done.
So typically with our request for proposals, we allow the experts who are proposing that they're going to do this work, tell us how they would do it. So we would advertise the request for proposal. We would tell them, these are our requirements. One of our requirements would be to evaluate the connection, build community connection, and then they would respond with how they're going to do that. And then that's part of the scoring element that we would judge their proposal on.
For public comment, we have one comment in room from Heidi.
Looks like we're on. Good afternoon. I'm Heidi Strunk. I'm the CEO of Mental Health America of California. Thank you for all your comments and all the extensive outreach. As the current contract holder with the California Youth Empowerment Network, it all lands exactly what we hear and are doing the work on. Cayenne, as a lot of these TAY organizations, we are by TAY, for TAY, so it's TAY-led, right? And this is what we want, this is what I'm hearing you want, and this is where we find the success. So I'd like to caution us as we're moving forward through this RFP process, if we're looking at awarding different points for different activities or outreach, that we be reminded that this is TAY leading TAY. So if we're looking at going into facilities as an example, just request that we're mindful that we can't just take TAY off the street and bring them into facilities. We do have other programs where we work in facilities, but there's extensive background checks, there's training that we have to prepare TAY to do in order to be in different environments. And then there's the support of the TAY while they're doing the work in these different environments. And we have to do that whether they're going inside facilities or not. We have to do this every day as we're working these programs. So I would just request that when we're looking at the proposals and the scoring, that we just remember that, to where if this is what we want to focus on, to be reminded that we have to put more work and energy and money and training to prepare and support the TAY in these environments. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Commissioner Mitchell?
Heidi, it's, and again, not trying to impact beforehand what would go into the RFP, but is that unreasonable to ask for the awardee to at least identify other TAY programs? Does that kind of go in alignment with what you guys are doing now, or if that's a piece you're not doing? Does it make sense to even have that request for this type of?
To create a
Contract.
registry is
Yeah, I
essentially
guess
what
you
I
could say
heard.
that, yeah.
My understanding of the way the proposals have been written in the past and the work that we've done, that falls outside of advocacy. Although at the same time, I do agree with you that that is absolutely necessary. We hear that up and down the state, and it's not just with Tay. People just don't know where to go to find stuff. And that's not specific to the Tay population. It's across the board. We get calls all the time to the organization looking for that. So like that would be something, is that would fall, does that fall outside advocacy? Does the commission determine that it falls inside advocacy? I think that's for y'all to determine. And looking at how the proposals are being written and created and graded.
Oh, thank you so much.
Absolutely.
And Ryan, since you guys create the language for the RFP, change the language.
Message received, Ms. Mitchell.
Our next public comment is from Kimberly online. Go ahead.
Hi, yeah, I just wanted to give some public comment as someone was in the Tay age range not too long ago. I definitely echo some of the concerns expressed in the presentation with Tay kind of being afraid they won't be taken seriously and being unsure about how to present in different environments. And I appreciate the kind of focus towards gaining more consumer perspective on these issues, because I guess from my own experience, there's a lot of people who are capable and a lot of people who are interested in kind of getting more involved in advocacy, but there's not enough outreach towards those people, so they're simply not aware. So I just kind of reflecting on my own experiences, if I had been aware that something like the Commission for Behavioral Health existed 10 years ago, you best believe I would have been here 10 years ago, but I just wasn't aware of that. So I think definitely there should be more consumer outreach. And the other thing is, I think even for Tay, there should be peer mentors across age demographics, because even if a peer mentor is not specifically in the Tay demographic, they often were experiencing their mental health concerns at a younger age. So even speaking from my own experience, I learned a lot from peer mentors who were older, because they helped provide a roadmap on how to deal with their own mental health condition and kind of provide an example to hope for. So I guess that's the context that I wanted to express. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And that was our last public comment.
Thank you, Mariani. Now that public comment has closed, I would entertain a motion. Krisanji, do you want to read the motion? Oh, we need the motion first? Okay. All right, we'll do it in order.
Second.
Well, we need it first. Okay,
Second, sorry.
so Mitchell and Cowan.
All right. That the Legislative and External Affairs Advisory Committee recommends that the commission approve the request for proposal outline for the Transition Age Youth Advocacy Contract. Commissioner Fairweather.
Aye.
Commissioner Hill.
Aye.
Commissioner Larson.
Aye.
Commissioner Mitchell. Commissioner Southard.
Aye.
Commissioner Thomas Beckett. Marking absent. Committee Vice Chair Callan.
Aye.
Committee Chair Bontrager.
Aye.
7 votes, it passes.
All right, thank you. Moving on to agenda item 7, the committee will hear an update on the advocacy contract strategy, including the scope, goals, and focus for future planning and implementation under BHSA. The passing of BHSA has created the need to look at all of our programs to ensure that we are including the BHSA priority populations in all aspects of the Commission's work. As such, the advocacy team has taken this opportunity to develop overarching goals, for the program and identified future focus for our advocacy grants. Finally, an exciting update about a new project related to the BHSA community planning process. I again would like to invite Ryan to present.
Thanks, it's the Ryan Show today.
Yeah.
Appreciate you guys on the previous really supporting the team and their outside of the box thinking on that one. I'm really excited about that project. Your comments were all well received and we'll incorporate them into our commission, full commission presentation. So now this is the presentation that was meant to have occurred previously at the commission, last commission meeting. So you've already heard some of it, but it's really important and bears repeating. So we're taking a different approach, as you just saw demonstrated in the previous presentation, to our advocacy contracts. And primarily, we wanted to come up with some really important goals across populations and then identify future focus. So this presentation is going to provide an overview of past contracts and considerations now that we are working to implement the BHSA. Bless you. And then we're going to utilize those advocacy goals to guide future planning and guide our projects, define the scope, goals, and strategic focus for advocacy, and then create and publish a stakeholder toolkit to help community members effectively engage in the BHSA community planning process. So a little bit of history here at CBH relative to advocacy. So our advocacy contracts originated in from the Mental Health Services Act. That prioritized transparent and collaborative processes to determine the mental health needs, at that time it was mental health, priorities and services for consumers and their families, promoting stakeholder engagement with the goal of informing local and state level policies, and a focus on providing support in advocacy training and education, outreach, and engagement. And again, those three buckets are where we took made our goals, because that's what's actually required in our statute. So we have a little timeline here, just lays it out. So like in 2012, we assumed responsibility for advocacy contracts from the Department of Mental Health. The original populations were clients and consumers, families, and parents and caregivers. So over time, and then in 2015, the legislature provided some additional funding in the amount of $1 million annually and added veterans, transition age youth, and diverse racial and ethnic communities to our populations. In 2016, the legislature again added funding in the amount of $1.5 million to annually support at equal allocations. So at that time, we had gotten different allocations for every population, and in an effort to make them uniform across the board and not make one more lucrative than the other, we had this ask and were granted money to make them all equal. And that has resulted in the $670,000 per year that we get now across all populations. And then at that time, they also identified LGBTQIA+ community as an additional priority. In 2018, the legislature again provided additional funding for work adding the immigrant and refugee population. And then in 2022, we added additional funding and made the allocation for immigrant and refugee advocacy work a double allocation, which is why we now offer two different contracts, one local and one statewide, because we have double the authority. And that is because of the high percentage of immigrant and refugees that we have here in the state of California. And then they added the K-12 students as a population. That has resulted in the populations that we work with today. So the BHSA community planning process is part of the work we're doing with our advocacy contractors. And this is a structured, inclusive process for engaging community stakeholders and voice in the development of the county's integrated plans for behavioral health services. And this process is meant to ensure that those integrated plans identify the needs, priorities, and voices of the community. So some changes under the BHSA were the identification of the priority populations to be included in the programming, and those were individuals with serious mental illness, individuals with substance use disorder, and co-occurring SMI and SUD conditions with emphasis on chronically homeless or at risk of homelessness, involved in or at risk of entering the criminal justice system, re-entering the community from prison or jail, and in the child welfare system at risk of conservatorship or at risk of institutionalism. These are applied across the board, youth and adults, right? So that is identified there. It also expanded the list of stakeholders who are to be included in the community planning process, and it also expanded the activities that stakeholders will engage in that process. So here's the expanded stakeholder list. I'm not going to go through all of them, but it really outlined who the counties need to engage with in order to inform their community plans. It's quite extensive and really comprehensive. So those are in your packets. And then the engagement activities that they suggest are here. You know, some of them are listening sessions, conference calls, work groups, committees, focus groups, and things like that. And those are meant to be their mechanisms for engaging those previously identified stakeholders. So in reviewing all of this information, the team has come up with a proposed overarching goal for advocacy. And this is to ensure the Behavioral Health Services Act priority populations have authentic community-led representation that shapes behavioral health systems through sustainable leadership and ownership. And this is something that we're going to try to do, well, we will do, right? Primarily is our first focus across all of our advocacy contracts. So within those populations that we're working with, we're really going to try to include the work that identifies the priority populations and really reaches them and their unique needs within their populations. In order to achieve our advocacy goal, we are going to support the population to identify their priorities, build strategies, and engage directly with decision makers. It's really hard to define advocacy, and you could ask 100 people and get 200 definitions, right? What we're choosing to focus on is identifying their priorities from their perspective, helping them to build strategies using our systems knowledge, right, and our reach, and then engaging directly and having them engage directly with decision makers so that there's impacts on their daily lives. Relative to training and education, we're going to build knowledge of behavioral health systems, foster confidence, networking, and abilities to organize, educate peers, and participate in local and state decision making. Again, all of these goals were developed through recognizing what populations were telling us, the themes that we heard across populations, and what they were looking to get out of advocacy, what it meant to them, and what it could do to impact their lives. And then finally, with our outreach and engagement, we're going to engage and build trust with the widest possible reach of vulnerable individuals, expand participation, foster connection, and reach new voices. So with that, how are we going to do all that? We are going to build a wonderfully fabulous community planning toolkit that we're really excited about. And what this is, and I'm not sure if you are all familiar with the Cal Mesa toolkit that was put out that was meant to be for counties on how to engage communities. We're going to kind of provide the reverse perspective of that and tell our community members, our CBOs, how to engage and make sure that they have a voice in the community planning process. How do they reach their counties? So this would be an accessible, inclusive, plain language guidebook and toolkit that we'll be able to put out to our partners, put out on our website to help the community members meaningfully participate in the community planning process. We want to be able to help them understand and engage in that process, be aware of the process. We were in a meeting yesterday, and I think Brenda was in the meeting yesterday, and she said, how many people here know about the community planning process? 10% maybe. And it was folks that probably should have been aware. So the word's not really getting out. People aren't really understanding. I think the BHSAs are very complex, right? And so I think who has time to read it, let alone understand it if you're not working in it every day? So I think that's one of our main goals. Also support the community and voice and really be an advocate for those folks that are trying to get heard, and then promote equity, transparency, and accountability. We are going to do things like for every county, find the contact, find when their meetings are, have that listed in one spot. So if you're in Sacramento County, boom, it's this guy, this is where we go. If you're here, it's this person, this is when their meetings are. We're also, within our, as applies to our advocacy programs, we are really requiring in their contracts. As a matter of fact, we are currently working with our contractors to amend their current contracts to include work with the BHSA priority populations, as well as the community planning process, in an effort to get out ahead of this work that starts, early next year. And so we're putting it into their requirements that they're going to, create these opportunities for their populations to participate in this process. The community planning toolkit is going to be a compilation of all of that feedback from our partners, from the communities and other state agencies. And then we have a company or a contractor that we're looking to contract with to professionalize it, make it accessible, and make it widely distributed across all of California. So that was I hope that was exciting. You said exciting, so yeah.
Yeah.
Good. Okay, cool. So that's all I have today. We're not voting on anything today. This was kind of just letting you guys know what was going on, and welcome comments, suggestions.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
What's your timeline? Because this is compressed, what's your deliverable?
For the toolkit specifically? So right now, staff are working to build content. And I know that Stacy had a concern earlier that we include a diverse perspective. And so the staff that we have working on it here at the commission that are building the content represent a diverse perspective. We're also working with our advocacy contractors to identify the needs of their population that would be beneficial in this toolkit as well. We are looking to have that out, we're hoping January, February, so that it's actually useful for folks who are starting to engage in that process.
I like your, it's a big lift to say that you're going to get all the planning meeting times and dates for each county. That's no small lift.
Yeah, some of them are like, yeah, we don't even know.
Yeah,
Some
they
of those
don't know.
smaller rural counties, I mean, Heidi can attest, they're already doing some of this work, and we spoke about this recently, is like, some of these rural counties that folks are reaching out to, they don't even know that they have to do this. And so part of when we're reaching out and saying, when's your meeting? They're like, what meeting? We're like, let me tell you about the BHSA.
I think it's so important that I would hope we'd consider at the commission even having a spot on our website that would report out on when all those meetings are occurring in each respective county.
Okay.
Just to remind us of our role with BHSA and supporting the community planning process. But right now, I open it up to fellow commissioners for any questions or comments. Commissioner Fairweather?
Hi, yeah, thank you for the presentation. So I attended the advocacy contractors meetings a couple months ago, I guess. And this came up there that there's so much confusion, what the process is, how people can impact it. There's confusion among county personnel. And so asking for, because all of the stakeholders were like struggling to like figure that out and then apply it to their cohort. So having, some help figuring it out, because it could take you forever and you never understand. I guess the timeline is concerning to me because I mean, and I realize also that, I mean, even in some of the bigger counties, they have not scheduled meetings yet, or really firmed up their plans. But my understanding is that the integrated plans have to be done and submitted in July
Mhm.
of 2026.
Mhm.
So
And
in
there's
January, that would leave uh
6
I mean,
months.
I guess I'm worried about this timeline and what the counties are doing. So I also really back up the suggestion that there's stuff on the website because I think that inevitably there's going to be things about this guide that can't be finished,
Uh-huh.
and have to be continually updated. But I super appreciate this is fantastic, and this is exactly what the contractors were asking for. Thanks.
Yeah, of course, and they're required to engage in those community planning, stakeholder listening sessions, whatever they choose to do annually and revamp their plans. So as those develop, I'm sure the first draft is not going to be their final draft, and so when they turn those in 2026, we'll also have that next year where we'll develop our tool as needs emerge, as the climate changes, and keeping up with the trends and things that are going on. And also it would be something that's continually in development, recognizing that, we're all building this plane together, so.
Yeah, having a list on the website not only provides transparency for stakeholders who may want to participate, but it also, I think, adds some level of visible accountability with our counties to ensure that they're actually convening these meetings in more than one. So
Absolutely.
there's some value there too.
Yeah.
Yes.
I love this. I feel like this is exactly what we as a commission should be doing, like this type of work, like engaging, educating, and I think I share the concern about the timeline a little bit. I know that some of these have already happened. I think it's why CalMesa's came out already, and I think the draft plans are actually due like in March. So so you only are so many people, and it's a lot of stinking work. So I also like this forward thinking, well, maybe it's going to help as a toolkit for the annual updates. And for the ability for communities to know where they can look for the data that is used to inform the voter and the other things. So, but I really love this. It's such a great job, and I only wish we could have it today.
I know, me too, because then it would be like done.
Okay. All right, any other commissioner comment? Mariana, Ani, do you want to open it up for public comment?
Yes, we have one in-room comment from Stacy.
Stacy Hiramoto with Remco and Safe Passages. The commission, I am so glad that you're undertaking this. It is a huge lift. When Prop 1 came out and I saw the additional community, people that were, well, not the community, it's the other government entities that are supposed to be involved and the other communities at the local level. It's not that I have an objection, but you saw that big list of everyone they're supposed to be engaging. And I will tell you, when Prop 63 came out and they were supposed to be doing this, I think the counties did do their best, but I will tell you, many people from BIPOC and LGBTQ communities, the leaders, and the people that are really within those communities, they were not engaged, to a very large extent, because counties didn't already have close relationships with some of those communities. Yes, they had some clients, some families, but now what I'm really worried about with this big planning process, again, I don't think it's wrong to try to coordinate. Like, I know that the thought was, well, the county behavioral health just can't just be here planning. They have to talk to their housing department and their public health department and their children, on and on. And not only that, with the city and the state, not just that, okay, I get that, but what I'm really worried about is that the voice, Prop 63 was unique because it really put the voices of consumers, family members, and community at the head. That was important. That was who was supposed to be driving. That was what was so special and so powerful about Prop 63. That's gone. I will admit, I don't like to say this, but I think that's gone in Prop 1, because now it's back to the old medical model and the old ways of thinking. And yes, they mention family and community kind of in there, but there's so many other people. I'm really worried that those voices that we're supposed to be leading are going to be really watered down. Particularly, again, those from racial, ethnic, and particularly immigrant communities, immigrant refugees. I realize that Prop 1 does want to emphasize people who are considered, quote, SMI, seriously mental, the chronically homeless, child welfare, all of that. I just hope that you don't change your advocacy grants, because at least I will only speak for the racial, ethnic, and the immigrant refugee. If you say, well, let's make a new group for SMI and chronically homeless, and let's get rid of, the people coming out of prison or child, I will tell you, even though people of color may make up the majority of the people in these populations, reducing disparities will not be a high priority, and the voices from the leaders and the people from racial, ethnic, and immigrant, and I don't want to speak for LGBT, they can speak for themselves, but they will be watered down. They will be watered down. The reason why the commission, well, that the legislature, and gave it to you, but the reason that these new groups for racial, ethnic, veterans, LGBTQ, some of the new populations is because it was recognized that Prop 63, with all its good intent, was not making a difference in reducing disparities for these special populations. That's why the OAC, in its wisdom, and the legislature made these new groups. Now, again, I know we have to include everyone and we have to move forward, but please be careful. Do not, I think, and it's not a matter of me in a contract, because we don't have the contract for the advocacy for that, and neither do, people involved with the CRDP. So it's not that. It's that these contracts really are to bring the voice of those underserved and those voices that are often not heard. Lastly, I want to go on. The community planning process, I really wish the counties could see how you guys are doing things, because there's, when you say the counties, it's like everybody says, I don't want to be critical because there's so many. Some are doing okay, some are not. But at least from what I've heard and what I understand, once again, people from the communities that I represent and work closely with, like the LGBTQ, they are not being sought after at the local level. Again, they're not trying to say, they're not ignoring them, but with all these new mandates to reach all the other county departments, and again, the Prop 1 does not place consumers, family members, and the community members at the front. It doesn't. So anyway, thank you for your work. I want to help. We're here to help, and I'm really glad that you are embarking on this training late as it is.
Thank you. Our next comment is from Teresa. You can go ahead.
Hi, this is Teresa Comstock with the California Coalition for Behavioral Health and the California Association of Local Behavioral Health Boards and Commissions. I wanted to, actually I have 4 points to make, and I'll do it quickly. The first one is just so glad to see you working on this toolkit, and I think it's great that you're going to be compiling a list so people know who to go to in the community to be part of the planning process, and then also what kind of data there is, that kind of know your community data, so that advocates can look at the data that affects them and use that as they advocate for the resources they need. The second point I wanted to make is that on behalf of the 59 local behavioral health boards and commissions, I just wanted to make sure that as you put this planning kit together, that you incorporate, their role within this process, and They should be, as part of their duties under Welfare and Institution Code, they are responsible to review and approve procedures that ensure citizen and professional involvement throughout planning processes. So they should be involved in, they could be getting presentations from staff. And I think a lot of times staff needs to be informed of this and they need to be trained to do these types of presentations so that the boards and commissions can review this work and approve it. And then the third item I wanted to mention for the California Coalition for Behavioral Health, we've compiled, we have 5 different toolkits now on our website. We have a BHSA Tools tab on our website. So we have toolkits for boards and commissions, children and youth, the county staff that Cal Mesa put together. We just did a presentation on peers and peer providers with CamPro, so that's up there as well. And then also the Department of Aging put together a toolkit for older adults. So just wanted to make sure those are known. And then also the California Behavioral Health Planning Council, their leadership has talked about making efforts also to do training and resources for stakeholders. So just wanted to raise your attention to that. Thank you.
Thank you.
And that was our last public comment. We have a hand raised from Commissioner Fairweather.
Yeah, Teresa, I just wanted to ask, there was a website on your camera that was calbhbc.org. Is that where those tools can be found? Hopefully she can answer.
1 second, let me unmute her line again.
I think those toolkits are on the California Coalition for Behavioral Health website.
Okay, California Coalition.
Right, yes, the website is cabehavioralhealth.org/BHSA.
Okay, great.
And then, yeah, California Association of Local Behavioral Health Boards and Commissions also has toolkits, but they're specific for boards and commissions.
Great, thank you.
Those are all of our comments.
All right, thank you. Ryan, thank you. We strongly endorse your work and we're excited to see it going forward. Thank you. On to agenda item 8. This is a difficult one. It's adjournment. I just want to thank and acknowledge our staff and all the work they've done in preparing for these meetings. But I also want to thank our public for the thoughtful engagement that we've had, and I want to thank my fellow commissioners. And we will see you on November 20th.